I've been saying this for a while now, but I'm of the opinion that Jason Statham has such a screen presence in everything that he's in. It's really a shame that he isn't given better material to work with. I prefer his work in Wrath of Man, where he's teamed up with a skilled director like Guy Ritchie, who understands how to use his talents, instead of his more recent forgettable work in things like the Meg 2 and the Fast and Furious franchise. And even though The Beekeeper has its flaws, I feel like this David Ayer-led action film is closer to the former rather than the latter. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Or protect the hive. When the system is out of balance, or correct it. Everyone, I need your attention, please. Hollywood has become corrupt, and I'm gonna burn that place to the ground. Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it! Do it!
The Beekeeper follows one man's brutal campaign for vengeance as he takes on national stakes after it's revealed that he's a former operative of a powerful organization known as the Beekeepers. Okay, right off the bat, I'll be the first one to tell you how over-the-top, cheesy, and sometimes ridiculous this film is. But I can also tell you that it was an entertaining ride that I didn't mind spending a Thursday evening watching. In many instances, we know exactly what we are going to get from a Jason Statham-led movie. And the trailers actually very much made it feel like a typical Liam Neeson vehicle, where he's kind of just this regular guy with an ordinary job, and he's forced into this situation where he has to be a badass.
Something very familiar about all this.
And this is kind of that, but I also feel like it's a bit more than that. Having a highly skilled, retired operative trying to live a normal life until he is pulled back into a situation where he needs to revert back to his old ways is not something new. Dare I say it's even cliche. But I also think there was enough wrinkles in the story and its presentation where I could see past some of the familiarities. What do I always say about cliches in movies? They can still work if they are approached even in a slightly different way.
That makes sense.
The Beekeeper is a completely ridiculous concept. It very much feels like a throwback to the beloved 90s action movie era, where the sole purpose of these movies was to entertain you and nothing more, even if it was at a very basic level. On paper, a literal beekeeper extracting revenge on an organization who is scamming the elderly out of money does sound a bit weird. Because if you're anything like me, you instantly ask the question, why does this character need to be a beekeeper in the first place?
Why?
Well, this movie has an answer for that because a beekeeper also happens to be a code name for a super secret badass operative in the CIA. They also use the concept of the interworkings of an actual beehive to draw parallels between what Jason Statham's character is doing and the actual structure of our government. It's honestly an aspect of this movie that I was not expecting, but I have to admit I did find it entertaining and it did add a little something to the film, even if it was ridiculous at times. Be warned, there is also some very on-the-nose, cheesy dialogue throughout this film. One of the characters actually utters the words, "to be or not to be."
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
An eye-rolling moment for sure, but also strangely appropriate for a movie like this. You guys know that I enjoy a good revenge tale just as much as the next person. And those stories typically only work if you are given a reason to get invested in the person who is extracting revenge's crusade. And I thought they did a decent job of setting that up. It's simple, it's quick, it happens almost immediately, but yet somehow it's still effective. Seeing a huge corporation scan an elderly woman out of her life savings is instantly going to make you hate the villains of this film and want to see them punished. And who better to deliver vigilante justice than Jason Statham? I want to make this clear. I will never get tired of seeing Jason Statham beat the shit out of people. No matter how many times I see it in strangely familiar or even different situations, it will always be entertaining to me. He is probably the most believable badass that we have working in Hollywood right now.
It's true.
I even felt like some of his tactics used in the film were pretty creative. There's something very satisfying about seeing a douchebag ripped off a bridge because he was tied to a moving truck. The movie also does that thing where it puts Jason Statham's character in situations completely surrounded by people with guns and making it very far-fetched that he would get out of that situation alive. But again, because it's Jason Statham, and again because he is believable as a badass, I can suspend my disbelief here and there just to enjoy the ride. There's a handful of side characters in the movie, like the FBI agent who just so happens to be the daughter of one of the people that were scammed out of their money.
Coincidence? I think not!
And I don't really feel like this character added much to the movie. I mean, it's obvious why she was included. They wanted to make this conflict a bit more personal, but it wasn't really needed. Jason Statham's character has a line of dialogue about how the person who was scammed was the only person who ever cared about him. And honestly, that was enough to make me care. Jeremy Irons is in the film as a villain of sorts, and if I'm being honest, his talents were underutilized. If Die Hard with a Vengeance taught us anything, it's that he is very capable of putting on a performance that makes him a very memorable villain.
He was an asshole. You got his number.
In fact, most of the villains in this film were pretty forgettable. A good portion of the main villains in The Beekeeper consist of Gen Z douchebags who talk about cryptocurrency a lot. Not a whole lot to write home about from a character perspective, but it did make them very easy to root against. Bottom line, The Beekeeper was mostly what I expected it to be. I think David Ayer does add a unique visual style to the film that sets it apart from other movies like it. I think it has a satisfying amount of brutality and badassery that will appeal to your average action movie fan. It's also over the top and cheesy with enough plot conveniences and questionable dialogue to make you cringe just a little bit at times. That being said, I still had a fun time with The Beekeeper. It was a flawed but entertaining experience and the very definition of a guilty pleasure. And that's why I'm going to be giving The Beekeeper the Cathouse.
Saved by kitty litter.
Y'all be cool. Right on.